Today on Censorship, I'm joined by Ksenia Fotinova-Arnaud, a tech entrepreneur who grew up in a family shaped by survival and resilience, and who turned that inheritance into bold ambition. She helps women in tech launch resilient, profitable businesses without quitting their corporate careers. From proving she could build a career in Europe against all odds, to navigating leadership failures, impostor syndrome, and motherhood, Ksenia's journey is about redefining success on your own terms. This is a conversation about courage, purpose, and building a life and a business that truly belongs to you. If you like this conversation, please give us 5 stars and share with a friend who needs to hear it. This is the best way to support the podcast. Let's dive in. Hello, Ksenia. Welcome. Thank you for making the time to sit down with me today.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's a pleasure.
To get us started, would you introduce yourself to our audience?
Of course. My name is Ksenia Fotinova-Arnaud. I am a serial tech entrepreneur and certified business coach, working with women in tech, especially helping them launch their own tech businesses alongside their corporate job, and also build their lives on their own terms.
And building their tech business alongside their corporate jobs, that's the path you took as well?
Almost. I co-founded my first tech business 15 years ago. Actually, this Monday we celebrated our 15th birthday. And I'm a co-founder. And my co-founder took the path of building the business alongside his corporate job. So I witnessed that through him, and I took a different path. I decided to quit my corporate job, but I knew that I had a runway of savings that could allow me to experiment on the things I really enjoy. And at the time I said, well, I give myself a year to see if that's the path for me, and if the business that we co-founded together, Le VPN, if that's the right thing for me as well, because it's cybersecurity space. It was completely new for me, even though I was working in tech, and actually really enjoyed it.
And it worked.
And it worked, and it's still here 15 years later.
Happy anniversary, by the way.
Thank you.
15 years, that's a big accomplishment. Take us back to the beginning a little bit. When you look at the young professional that you were, what was your vision or your definition of success back then?
I think depends how far I take myself, but I think the definition of success very early in my career was I knew that I had to work hard to get the things that I want. And very early in my career, all I wanted to do is to be able to build a career in Europe. Coming from the Ural Mountains in Russia at the time, I heard so many people say, oh, it's completely impossible to change your student visa to a working visa in France. Nobody wants to hire you. And I wanted to prove everyone wrong. And I think I had this resilience and belief that I can make the impossible possible. And that's what happened in my career. I figured out how to get that working visa from the first tech company that hired me. And I think I still am, but even then I was already very, very, very ambitious. And I would take one role, but I would always be looking ahead, like what is the next step for me? And luckily for me, I don't know if that's destiny or universe that helped me or my belief in the very hard work, but I was skipping steps very fast. The very first company I started working for was a fintech startup. And 4 months into the job, I was hired at the very entry level as an assistant. I became a CFO. Just because an opportunity happened. They had to let go the existing CFO. It was summer holidays in France. The management team was living on a 2 months vacation, July and August. They had nobody to fill in the spot, and said, well, Ksenia sounds smart. She probably can figure it out. And that's what I did. And then on Christmas corporate party, was officially promoted to the CFO of the company, just being there less than a year. And I think that's an example of how everything kind of happened in my career. And I think it was thanks to the ambition and hard work.
So you had a vision of what you wanted to accomplish next, always.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a CEO. That was my end goal.
You knew that. That sounds great. And in your early experience, did you already know what kind of leader you wanted to go, or is that something that took shape as you went?
Yeah, I think it took shape as I progressed. I think especially for me, very early in my career, I frankly was a very bad leader. I didn't know how to manage teams.
What did that look like?
I don't look like this.
What did that look like? Do you mean a bad leader? What was that?
I have a good example of a job I took right after my MBA in Bali. I was hired to do the turnaround of a luxury real estate company, a company that was renting out luxury villas with a 5-star service. They had 20 villas under the management, about 200 people working for the company and 20 people in the office. And same story repeated itself as in my first story I just told you about the fintech startup. 4 months into the job, the founder said that she wants to leave and leave the company and go live in California, and that she feels like I could take over the CEO position and manage the whole company for her. And I was not really happy about that because I was enjoying the role I was in, but I said, okay, if there's no choice, I'm going to do it. And that's when I realized how hard it is to actually manage people. I had 20 people to manage. And I believe that if I just focus on getting my job done, everything will just organize itself. But it didn't. People needed my attention. They needed leadership, which, except for setting tasks themselves, I didn't really know how to do. And I had to pay really hard for it because there was a lot of turbulence happening in the company and people started leaving. And I realized at some point that even when I started hiring new people, they would also leave. I was like, okay, then the problem are not them, the problem is me. And I need to fix that. So I started looking for advice, looking for mentors and coaches and people who were there before me, and trying also to reflect on all the classes I did at INSEAD on organizational behavior and how to actually lead teams. And I remember that case study we did in a group, which was about, there was basically a competition between the different groups in my MBA class of this virtual case. And the group that won, they had a very simple strategy. That was taking out everybody for lunch, one by one in small groups until they can get them on their side and then build up towards bigger groups. So I was like, I'm going to use this strategy. So that's what I did in Bali. I took them out for lunch individually in small teams. I set a rule that after each team meeting, we go for lunch together. You pick the place, you pick the most typical Indonesian restaurant that would really leave me breathless, really like shock me. And most of the people I was managing were all Indonesian, and most of them were men, and I really enjoyed the experience of seeing my shocked face as they eat something. I have no idea what is inside. And then they show me that they're actually eating it with their hands. And I will be looking at this like, oh my God, what is this? And they were really proud of themselves. And it just became a part of our tradition. And when I decided to leave the company, to start something of my own, they threw me a goodbye party and they said, you were the best manager we ever had in this company. And I was thinking, oh my God, what a journey from where I started to where we ended up. Just because I realized that the problem was in me, and the problem was that you cannot manage focusing just on your work. You need to really give value to other people. And it's funny, in Indonesian language, a form of respect in the language for a woman, they say ibu. And that can mean ma'am. It can mean an older lady, the respectful form of that, but it can also mean a mother. And I really lived that experience because they all called me Ibu Ksenia. And so I felt like I was a mother figure to them, even though I was younger than everybody else. But I had to bring that mother figure in my leadership in that specific situation, that specific company, because that's what they needed.
In that particular experience, you not only had to figure out leadership, period, because you'd never been in quite such a position before, but you also had to figure out the cultural aspect.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing is it took a lot of humility and taking a real step back to look at the situation.
Yeah, it was hard. I was fresh out of my MBA. I was like this A-type and completely pumped for the life in front of me, and like the job was amazing and the salary was amazing and all the perks of living an expat life in Indonesia. And I had to realize, no, I need to adapt to them and I need to speak their language.
It works in all kinds of relationships, but it's very, very present at work for sure. So you spent the early years of your career in companies, and at what point did you decide, I want to do my own thing, I want to start my own company?
Yeah.
Was there an event that triggered that, or was it progressive?
It was a little bit of both, I think, because I always knew that I want to start something of my own eventually. I just didn't know at which point I will feel ready. And I think a lot of women I work with also at the same stage. They are accumulating experience and knowledge, and it's very difficult to tell yourself, okay, now I'm ready, because it seems like there's always more. And the thing that triggered is that experience in Bali, when the business owner, the founder of the company, said, I can leave the company up to for you to manage, and I'm gonna be living in California because this is what I want. And I saw her just connecting to her meetings a couple of hours a week, and that was her all involvement. And I told myself, well, I'm actually running the company on her behalf, and she's getting all the benefits of my work and of my team's work. And if I could do it for her, why not do it for myself? And I wouldn't say that I said, oh, I'm 100% ready to start something on my own, but I was ready to take the leap of faith and say, there's a high probability of me being able to succeed if I do it for myself.
Are we ever 100% ready? I know I've had that same conversation about, oh, I'm not ready to have kids. We're never ready.
Never.
Right? What did that, you used the phrase, I took the leap. What did that look like? Emotionally, practically?
Yeah.
What was that transition like?
Well, that was a strategy that I prepared in advance. So I knew the moment I realized that I want to be out, I decided that I always want to have backup plans. Maybe that's my cultural thing, but I knew that I had a very good salary, but life in Bali could be very cheap. It could be very expensive, right? It depends what you decide. And I decided that I'm going to build up my savings so that I have at least 1 to 2 year runway of building something of my own and giving it a try, and give it a really conscious investment of time and energy to have a real test to see if it works. So I started building this up and having this safety net financially while I was still in my job. And then when I was ready to take a leap, I knew that I could do it and I could experiment. And in the beginning, I didn't even know what the business will be about. I had several ideas. I love running business plan spreadsheets in my Excel. I just have so much fun doing that. And I think I run so many models of different business ideas. And I was like, no, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. And then my co-founder found me and pitched his idea of a company to me when he was in Bali. And what I liked about the idea, that it was already validated. He was already doing a very small beta version of that, just a very tiny prototype, just for the French market, very, very limited features alongside his corporate job. And he saw that there was demand. And so he came to me and said, okay, well, I bring the technical aspect of the product. I know how to build a product, but I need somebody to take it global and to make a real business out of it. So that's where I could come in. And I said to myself, well, what's the difference between marketing luxury villas or marketing a security app? It was the same thing. I could definitely give it a try. And since I knew that there was demand, I knew that it was already a good idea, a solid idea to work with. So that's how it all started. And I told myself, and I told him, okay, it's going to be an experiment. We're going to give it 3 to 6 months because I say that to my clients as well. There's different assumptions we always want to validate when we're building our business. There's the assumption, obviously, of the demand, whether the business idea is going to work. But there's also the assumption of whether you as a business owner is going to actually enjoy being in this business. And if you're actually good at it, and if the skills and experience and expertise you bring to the table are enough to build this up or not. So it's also an experiment on yourself. And that's what I told my co-founder. It's going to be an experiment for me to see if I actually like it. And let's give it 3 to 6 months. And then if I do, then, we officially become co-founders. And that's what we eventually did. We registered the company officially in Hong Kong, and it all started from there.
So it started in Asia.
Yes.
And after that, you came back to
Yes.
France. I want to ask you how you deal, or if you had to deal with self-doubt, impostor syndrome, that sort of things. The internal storms that can sometimes rage when you go through something radically different from what you were doing before.
Absolutely, all the time. I think that's the only way to grow. Because if you don't have those feelings of, wow, this is so scary, I'm probably not going to be good enough of it, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. That's my theory. So, I think my whole life was so scary. Every single step, I had to overcome those fears. Maybe not overcome. No. That's too big of a word. Just deal with them.
And how do you deal with them?
So I have this method that, again, learned in Bali. Because when I lived in Bali, I had a lot of woo-woo friends who were doing meditations and all sorts of things. And I really enjoyed it. It was such a beautiful lifestyle. And one of the people I knew in Bali taught me this technique that you give your imposter syndrome, that little voice in your head, you give it a name, and you picture it as a real person. And I called mine Barbara. No offense to any Barbaras out there. So you give it a name, and then when you start hearing, you say, okay, thank you, Barbara, for this feedback. How about you go sit in the corner right now because I'm in charge. I can do it. And that really helped me. And I now teach this exercise to my clients because when you give this name, a persona, a name, you detach yourself. And you can tell it to sit quietly out there. And you can also notice when it's coming up in your mind, because it comes up pretty often, I think, for a lot of people. But that's just a way to silence it just a little bit so that you can do your thing.
And not let it take over.
Exactly.
Keep it under, okay. Oh, that's fascinating. Thank you for the tip. I like it.
You're welcome.
Was there a time when you thought this might not work? And actually, I think more importantly, when was the time you think this is it? It's going to work?
Such a good question. Because the times when you think it might not work, it's kind of all the time, but I love to have a plan B. If it does not work, what do I try next? Because my mantra in life is you only fail when you stop trying. And you may fail. I look at everything as an agile experiment. And if it doesn't work, I already know what I'm doing next.
For our non-tech audience, what does agile mean?
Yeah. Agile means just adapting. You just run a test, see how things work, and if they don't work, you just change direction. Slightly or a lot, depending on what the results of your experiment, of your test are. But agile just means being flexible.
And trial and error.
Trial and error. And just keep trying. And did I ever tell myself, that's it? It depends. In the space, in the season of life where I'm right now, where I know exactly what my mission is. And I know that that's it. And my mission is to help 10,000 women in tech build their own resilient and profitable businesses that create a meaningful impact for the world. That's what I really want to do. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what fires me up. And for me, that is it. I found it. But it took a lot of agile experiments to get here.
How did you develop this agile, I want to say resilience? Have you always had it? Or is that something that grew also with a number of trial and errors?
Interesting. I would say it was probably built in me growing up in the Soviet Union. Because being agile is simply not taking no for an answer, not stopping at something that didn't work and keep going forward. And I think if you don't have this mindset, life can be kind of hopeless. So I think it was always in me. But then obviously, I've been working as a business coach for INSEAD for 8 years now. And the programs I work on are all about innovation and strategy in this very changing world full of technological disruptions. And the agility, the flexibility of adapting to this world is just built in all this executive programs I work on. And I've coached over 1,000 executives for INSEAD at this point in 8 years. So it kind of became automatic to me. So the answer to your question is that it is both. But yeah.
I've read you writing about weatherproofing your business.
Yes.
I think that's something you bring up in your client work.
Mm-hmm.
Do you also coach your clients to weatherproof themselves? Is that part of the process?
Yes. So after coaching over 1,000 people, I realized what is it that makes some companies and some businesses survive through any market condition or any economic forecast, and others go out of business. And this is how I build my weatherproof business formula that I trademarked and that I now teach to my clients. And this formula has 4 parts in it. It's why, who, what, and how. And the why component is exactly what you're talking about, is weatherproofing yourself, because when you're building your business, it is anchored in such a strong why of why you're building it, that you know that when the times get tough, and they often do, you remember what you're building this business for. And that mission, why you started it in the first place, helps you survive and stay resilient and pivot and find plan B and C and D and E and whatever plans it's going to take to get there. So to me, that focus on the why is very, very important. And this is also how you can build something meaningful. When I work with clients, I'm not interested in helping them just build another product for the sake of a product. I want them to build something that creates real impact and that solves real problems. Because I believe that we already have a lot of consumption economy out there, and a lot of people on their phone just buying. And there are also many problems for which people need solutions. So there is a lot of market opportunity there, and I only want to work with founders who are really interested in solving meaningful problems. And they often come, again, from their own why, because maybe that's the problem they had in the past, or they had somebody around them in the past. For example, I have one of the clients, she is building a solution for executive women who experienced a chronic pain, and how to solve this pain to be able to perform at the level that they're performing. And the problem that she's solving comes from the problem that she had herself in her own experience when she's an executive woman in tech. She's been traveling a lot for work. And one day she got to that tech conference in a different location in the United States. And she found herself not being able to walk because of something just changed in her body, and she just could not. And then she realized with time what she needs to be doing to preserve her body, and also how to deal with this chronic pain and the disease that she learned that she had. So now she's building a solution for other women who could experience the same thing. And that's the example of that very strong why. And going through that journey, at some point she came to me, and as many people, when you're just starting out, you have doubts. And she said, well, this thing that I tried didn't work. And I asked her, so what now? You're going to stop? She's like, no, I'm never stopping. I need to do this. I was like, well, this is exactly what I wanted to hear, because your why is strong enough.
That strong sense of purpose is what keeps you going, is what you're saying. Yes, I totally agree. You are yourself an ambitious woman. You work with a lot of ambitious women. Are there patterns or behaviors that you notice that maybe would help the women listening to us to not feel alone?
Absolutely. I believe in the power of community, that we can really be stronger together. And one of my clients created this term that I now use that I really love. She called it compound confidence. This is when you surround yourself by a community of other founders or women in tech who are building alongside you, who are at the same stage of their journey, and they're also figuring it out. And that can help you lift each other up. And when somebody is struggling with their confidence, the others can remind them what they already did, what their wins already were, and who they are. Because sometimes we just need that outside reminder to remind us who we are, that, you already achieved so much. Look at you. And this is how compound confidence is built, because you're just building together in that community, in that group of other founders who understand you. And you can achieve that in many different ways. I mean, there's networking events, and you can build a community yourself. I love the format of the mastermind, where you have maybe a group of 3 to 5 people who are coming together, and they just decide to meet regularly, maybe once a month, twice a month, to just share what they're working on, and then give each other feedback and maybe some advice, and maybe introduce them to people if they have some introductions to make, and just have this accountability circle around them. And this is what I also advise clients I work with to, besides working with me, keep building on the side, keep creating that mastermind circle where they also meet and lift each other up.
So find and or build your tribe, your village
Exactly.
to help. It takes a village. I love it. I love that. What about you? How do you navigate reputation, your credibility? How do you work on, is that very strategic, very deliberate, or you just go with the flow?
A lot of experimenting.
Same thing.
Yes, definitely. Experimenting, but also working with other coaches and mentors. I love the idea of working with people who are a few steps ahead of you. Even if you're not going to replicate exactly what they did 100%, you can test it to see what works. And in the past 2 years, as I started investing in building my personal brand, especially on LinkedIn, because I realized if I want to have that impact, I need to invest in the personal brand, even though being on public is not the thing I love. Actually, the opposite. I'm such an introvert. But I knew that it was important. It was important for my mission. And I think that in 2 years, I worked with more than 10 coaches in all the different areas of business and marketing and personal branding and in sales and all kinds of things. And I just adopted bits of pieces of different people to see what works for me. And I think this is how you navigate. One small step at a time. Look for advice or mentorship where you can. And also remember what you're doing this for. What's the mission behind it? Because, again, going back to that why, it can really change the perspective.
You know, there's something crossed my mind a couple of months ago. I had an episode with Charlotte Otter, who specializes in reputation management. And she said something really powerful. She said, what you do and how you do it is extremely important. But the other half is being seen doing it so that you can have the impact.
Yeah.
And I thought that, you know, when you said, ooh, self-promotion, being in public, I don't like it very much. I think we all feel that way. It's uncomfortable. But it's true. If people don't see us do the good work that we do, it will have less impact.
True. But I also believe in focusing on creating value.
Right.
Because all the content that I publish, and I also have a newsletter that I try to send out once a week with something much more deeper advice than what you can publish on social media. And I always try to think, what could be useful to my audience right now? What were maybe some of the conversations I had with my clients in the past week that could resonate with more people? And I'm just thinking about creating value for them, really helping them on their journey, which is not easy when you're starting something of your own. And then sometimes I get those DMs back and say, oh, like I really loved the newsletter from this morning, that it really impacted me, or you know, I love your content, like it made so much sense and made me moving in that direction. And I always tell myself, if it made a difference for just one person, that's all that matters for me.
Makes it worth it.
It's worth it.
And it builds trust and credibility to bringing that value. Yes. I would love an example of a coaching that you thought was successful, with the biggest transformation or the biggest accomplishments that you accompanied someone. along the way. Do you have that in mind?
I have quite a few. Well, maybe let me talk about Juliana. I work with, who was building a SaaS product, a social impact app. And we started working together when she actually started working in this idea a few years before that. And then she went on maternity leave, life happened, she kind of had to abandon her startup idea for a couple of years. And then when she came back on the market, she realized that the exact idea she was developing became Asana. And she's like, oh my God, I just lost such a huge opportunity because I thought of it much longer before they existed. And that's when we started working together. It's like, okay, so, where do we pivot? You need to pivot, because I hate for clients to abandon whatever they already worked on. I always believe in building up on what you already have. Even if you pivot, you kind of find a way to not waste all the time and energy you already put in. So she started thinking about the different reasons and her why, and like why she wants to build it. And then she learned that there's a specific direction related to social impact that she wanted to take. And then she started running the different experiments of pitching her idea to different government organizations. That was a B2B SaaS, to see if there's really a need for this platform, for this SaaS tool, to solve the different problems. And we actually looked, I think there was 2 or 3 different niches of the different ways that she could go, and just probing and testing whether there's demand and whether there's enough market for it. And after a few months of doing that and finding those meetings and appointments with people, with the decision makers, she got 2 letters of intent that allowed her to actually build a whole tech prototype, that financed the whole tech prototype without her investing a penny in the SaaS product.
Beautiful. Really nice. You have a lot on your plate. You have a company, a coaching business, you have young children. How do you not just keep it balanced, but how do you manage that with your ambitions and your dreams and future projects, and stay aligned with your purpose?
Good question. It's actually something I learned from Tony Robbins. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. I did all his programs. My husband thinks I'm crazy when I did them virtually at home, just jumping there with Tony energy. And he has this system which he called RPM, Rapid Planning Method. And if I were to really simplify it, it was about having three key priorities for the year. And just knowing if I could just achieve 3 things, what would they be? And then based on these 3 key priorities, you decide to achieve those, what are the 3 key priorities for the quarter? And then you narrow them down into 3 for a month and then 3 for a week. So I always focus on 3. This week I have just 3 things that I need to accomplish. Podcast recording with you and 2 other things. And if I accomplish those, I am on track. And those are priority. And then everything else, if we're talking about work, just a bonus. Because I know that I'm in this season of life where I have small kids. And even though I'm very passionate about my coaching business, I'm very passionate about working with women in tech. I'm still very passionate about my Louis VPN company. My kids are still my priority. And I love the fact that I've built my business and my life in such a way that I can be absolutely flexible. And if today, after this recording, I need to take the rest of the day off because I need to pick up my kids, or I don't know what happens, I can absolutely do that, because I manage my calendar and I manage my schedule. And this is what I mean when I say that I want to help other women design their life on their own terms, because this is what I call the life design. I design what my priorities are. And right now they're in my family and my business. But I try to take some time for myself as well. I did yoga this morning, so that was already a big ticking the box for me.
What does success look like to you now compared to, earlier we talked about what it looked like at the beginning. What does it mean now?
Time freedom. Time freedom is really what really matters to me right now. Obviously, you want to have all the foundations down, right? You want to have financial stability. You want to have a nice place to live. You want to be able to afford good school and activities for your kids. These are the foundations. But then having that time freedom to know where you invest your time, and also when it comes to work, only work on the things that you really enjoy. This is the ultimate success for me.
Very nice. Where do you find your inspiration? You mentioned Tony Robbins. Are there, I don't know, podcast books that you think everybody should read?
There's so many. I have this huge library at home with, I think I'm reading like maybe 100 books a year. I'm a crazy person. And when my friends come home, they always leave with a book that I lend. And recently I lended a book to a friend who came by. It was the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I don't know if you read that. It's all about what is important and what is not. What do you actually let go of, and what things are worth fighting for, and what things are just worth of letting go of, and to keep that energy and the right mindset. So I just love this book, and I think everybody should read it. And it's an easy read too.
I listened to it actually,
good.
and yes, it's nice theory. It's a wonderful perspective to take distance from things that we shouldn't let them affect us. So
Yeah.
we let them go. Let them.
And I think this perspective maybe doesn't work for everyone, but for where I am in my life right now, it really works for me, because you kind of have to decide, like when you're running so many different projects and you're responsible for so many things at the same time, you need to understand like what really matters and what are just the details.
Do you think, or how do you think about legacy and what kind of impact you want to leave? What you want to be remembered for?
Yeah. I was thinking about it recently, and I have a daughter who is less than 3 years old right now. But when I look at her, I'm thinking, what am I doing today to leave this world in a better place for her? And okay, I work in tech, so it's all about AI and all the transformations happening in tech because of AI. And so my thinking is, how can I help making sure that the technology and all the tech companies that are being created right now leave this world in a better place? And I think my mission is partially fueled by wanting to leave this legacy for my daughter, wanting to create a better place for her to live in, because technology is an enabler. It's just something that we leverage to live better lives as human beings. This is what I absolutely believe in. That humans should be working less, living better, and because we're working smarter using the technology, and the technology works for us and gets all those things done for us.
What advice you wish you had received when you were young that you know you're going to give your daughter?
Never give up. And I think I received it. I think all the examples of women in my family non-verbally gave me that advice.
By example?
Well, you know that my grandmother was born in a gulag. Because my family were considered too rich because they had a cow. So they were sent to the Ural Mountains to work in the mines in the gulag. And this is where my grandmother was born, and some of her brothers and a sister as well. And we've only realized that recently, because from what I remember her, the stories that she was telling, that, wow, she was living in a part of a city that was town that was separated from everything else. They were not allowed to go to the same school as the other kids. And then at some point, the walls came down and they became Maxima. But we never really realized that it was a gulag. And then just recently, maybe in the last decade, it was like, what you were describing, that was called a gulag. That was a special settlement. And she never gave up. She didn't really have access to education, but she decided she wants to train to become a salesperson, and then she eventually became a sales manager of a grocery store, and then keep going up without college or university degree. She did all that. And then my mom was the next generation, and my mom did the Moscow Aviation Institute, which is one of the top engineering schools in the Soviet Union. And she was accepted there, obviously, back then, full scholarship. And she was the first one in the family to have a university education. And then and also never gave up. And then, I mean, I could talk about my family forever, but then eventually in the 90s, her and my dad became entrepreneurs and started something of their own when the whole Soviet system collapsed. And the salaries were delayed for more than a year. So they knew that they could not really support the family, that they need to do something in this market economy, and that's what they did. They founded a knitwear manufacturing business and employed another 100 people from their community, and to give them jobs and salary to be able to buy food for their families.
So you come from a family of survivors.
Yes.
And that's where, thank you for sharing that story. It really shows the built-in resilience. It's something that you were born with or were raised with.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Thank you for asking this question, because that makes me realize all of that as well.
What's next on your horizon?
Helping 10,000 women. That's my goal that I want to hit. In the next 10 years, I'm at this point, I focus on creating as much awareness as possible about the fact that it is possible to start your own tech business without quitting your job. And you should not be quitting your job, because you need that safety and security layer until you know that your business idea works. And then you can fully invest your time into it, and then it can replace your corporate income. And I am often running masterclasses, free masterclasses for women in tech to explain my system. And this year already had more than 1,000 people come to my masterclasses. So I'm very happy with this result. But of course, I want to have also more people inside my group coaching program, where these women come together and build their business from zero to their first beta users and beta clients in a few months, with the support my support as a coach, obviously, and using my system, but also with the support of other women working together.
That's great.
So the more women start building this and create meaningful impact and solve real problems using technology, that's all I want.
Ksenia, this is going to be my last question. What can we wish for you at this point of your journey?
In this season in life, you can maybe wish for my kids to sleep through the night. That would be the biggest gift. Otherwise, I think I have everything else covered.
Sounds great. That would be a big win, wouldn't it?
It would.
Thank you so much. I had a lovely time with you today.
Thank you, Stephanie. It was a pleasure.